This week on the pod, can cows eat hemp without getting THC in their milk? New research has the answers and a timeline. Plus, Bayer's Roundup battle heads to the Supreme Court. Could this case reshape pesticide rules nationwide?
Also, the USDA slashes staff and pulls back food safety reforms while rolling out a $1 billion avian flu plan. Tyson's Amarillo workers just voted to strike. What's at stake for the beef supply and prices?
And Rodeo fans, we've got your 2025 College National Finals results. I'm Braeden.
And I'm Savannah.
Welcome to Magnetic Ag Ears Edition.
Every week, we break down the top headlines and trends facing food and agriculture.
Fast, fun, and actually useful. Let's get it. Recent research from Oregon State University reveals that feeding dairy cows a byproduct of hemp extraction, aka spent hemp biomass, leads to detectable THC only during feeding. But once they switch back to a regular diet, the THC disappears from their milk in just about 2 weeks.
So what's in the study? 18 Jersey cows. Half of them received a diet with 13% hemp byproducts. The other half got standard feed. After 28 days of these different diets, all cows had withdrawal periods back to regular feed. Researchers monitored milk, tissues, and blood plasma throughout the study.
And what are some of the results? THC and other cannabinoids were flushed from the milk and tissues within about 15 days post-withdrawal, meaning 2 weeks of, quote, no hemp. Additionally, milk's THC risk drops off sharply after withdrawal. That gives regulators a clear timeline to set safe feed rules. However, one report adds a small grain of caution that trace THC was still found in fat tissues up to 30 days later, though not in the milk.
This matters because hemp byproducts, especially after extracting CBD, are plentiful and cheap. Converting what was once a waste into a nutritious cattle feed could help farmers and reduce landfill loads.
It also opens the door for possible FDA approval for hemp biomass as livestock feed. A similar diet has been tested in lambs, where a similar hemp fed and withdrawal routine didn't affect meat safety or health, reinforcing hemp biomass as a strong feed alternative.
To wrap it up, cows can chew the hemp, but only if we let them clear their system for about 15 days.
Today's crop roundup needs no introductions. The U.S. Supreme Court is now officially in the weeds, literally.
On Monday, the justices asked the U.S. Solicitor General to weigh in on the legal dispute between Bayer and the courts, one that could shape how federal pesticides law are interpreted across the country. At the center of the case is Roundup, a widely used weed killer whose active ingredient, glyphosate, has been linked to lawsuits that claim cancer.
Bayer, which acquired Roundup maker Monsanto in 2018, is asking the court to rule whether federal law, specifically the Federal Insecticides, Fungicides, and Rodenticides Act, or FIFRA, should override state-level claims that Roundup failed to warn users of risks.
The request stems from a Missouri case, John L. Durnell versus Monsanto. In that case, the Missouri Court of Appeals held a $1.25 million verdict against Bayer, ruling that the company could be held liable under state failure to warn laws, even though Roundup's label followed EPA guidelines under FIFRA.
It's not the only court to take that stance. State courts in California and Oregon, as well as the 9th and 11th U.S. Circuit Courts of Appeals, have ruled that federal pesticide rules do not shield Bayer from such lawsuits. But the Third Circuit came to the opposite conclusion in a separate case, creating a legal patchwork that now begs for a higher ruling.
In a statement, Bayer's CEO Bill Anderson called the Supreme Court's request from the Solicitor General's opinion an encouraging step, arguing that consistent national rules are crucial for the future of food, farming, and innovation. He warned that if companies like Bayer are punished for following federal law, it could open the barn door to endless lawsuits and leave farmers stuck in the middle. Bayer continues to pursue what is called a multi-pronged strategy to rein in U.S. litigation by the end of 2026.
And Bayer isn't going it alone. A who's who of ag has filed amicus briefs in support, all from the American Farm Bureau Federation to the National Corn Growers, Soybean Association, Wheat Growers, Cotton Council, and many more. Their arguments say that regulatory certainty and science based labeling protect not just companies, but the growers who depend on these tools to feed the world.
So, what's next? The Supreme Court will review the Solicitor General's opinion before deciding whether to hear the case during its 2025-2026 term. If they take it up, a final decision could arrive by June of next year. A ruling in Bayer's favor, they say, could finally contain the litigation wildfire.
From courtroom battles to agency shakeups, big moves are unfolding in U.S. food policy this week. The USDA and FDA are now downsizing massively.
Under President Trump's administration, Department of Government Efficiencies, or DOGE, the USDA offered 16,000 deferred resignations and plans to cut 30,000 jobs overall. The FDA cut 3,500 positions in April, including food safety scientists and communications staff.
And those staffing cuts are making impacts on policy. The USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service just withdrew its proposed salmonella framework for raw poultry. After 7,000 plus public comments, they're back to the drawing board, citing concerns over legal authority, economic impacts, and small producer effects.
Meanwhile, the USDA delayed sampling for not ready to eat bread stuffed chicken until November to finalize lab and inspection protocols. The FSIS says accurate testing is crucial before enforcing new salmonella standards.
But it's not all cuts. The USDA announced a $1 billion plan to fight avian influenza, including $500 million for biosecurity audits and upgrades, and up to $400 million to be given to producers forced to depopulate infected flocks.
Additionally, states are getting a funding bump. Secretary Rollins announced an extra $14.5 million to keep state level meat and poultry inspection programs afloat this year. But the USDA warns the funding isn't sustainable long term.
Over at Health and Human Services, Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is leading the Make America Healthy Again Commission with its first target of childhood chronic disease. Their report blames ultra-processed foods for rising rates of obesity, diabetes, and even neurodevelopmental issues in children.
The commissioner called out ingredients like titanium dioxide, aspartame, and certain preservatives for potential endocrine and health impacts. But ag groups warn against demonetizing food production. National Pork Producers Council President Dwayne Statzler urged caution, stating, quote, efforts that undermine farmers are harmful and ignore the facts of America's food safety record.
And while federal policy is keeping headlines busy, labor tensions are heating up on the ground. Trouble is brewing at Tyson's Amarillo beef plant, where workers have just authorized a strike.
Teamsters Local 577, representing 3,100 slaughters and processing workers, voted with a 98% margin to approve strike action. Their demands higher wage and better benefits.
But it's not just about pay. The union claims Tyson has committed multiple unfair labor practices in recent weeks, alleging management harassed union stewards, coerced injured employees to drop claims, and threatened job loss for striking workers.
Tyson hasn't commented yet on the vote, but this isn't a small facility. The Amarillo plant employs around 4,000 people with an annual payroll of $180 million. Back in 2022, Tyson announced expansion plans for the plant, underlying its role as a major hub in the beef business.
So, what does this mean for the industry? If workers walk out, it could significantly disrupt beef processing capacity at a time when cattle supplies are already tightening nationwide. Any slowdown could ripple through the supply chain, from feed yards holding cattle longer to retailers facing tighter boxed beef supplies, and potentially rising wholesale prices.
Beyond Amarillo, this move could energize labor organization enforcements in other meatpacking plants, especially as workers continue pushing for stronger wages and safer working conditions.
And to lighten things up as we round up this episode, rodeo fans, the best young cowboys and cowgirls in the country, just wrapped up a week of adrenaline in Casper, Wyoming. The 2025 College National Finals rodeo champions have been crowned.
So let's break it down. The bareback winner was Cooper Filipic of Gillette, Wyoming, with 325 points.
In tie-down roping, we have Tyler Calhoun from Southwest Texas College with a time of 38.7 seconds.
In the breakaway roping, there was a tie between Kate Eland of Pearl River Community College and Riley George of East Texas A&M with a 10-second flat.
In saddle bronc riding, the winner was James Peeran of Casper College with 324.5 points.
Steer wrestling winner was Cameron Humea of Sewell Rose State with 20.6 seconds.
And in goat tying, Tori Brower of Tarleton State University had a time of 24.5 seconds.
Cashin Ritchie of Texas Tech and Cashin Weidenberger of Weatherford College win with a 26.2 second time.
In Savannah, we can't forget about barrel racing. The champ was AC Pinkston of Southwest Texas College with a time of 56.23 seconds.
And finally, the bull riding honors went to Trace Scarlevy of Mid Plains Community College, scoring 242.5 points.
And then they gave away some all-around titles. In the men's division, Brad Marino of New Mexico State took the title, and in the women's, Hayden Thompson from Gillette College.
Team titles went to Tarleton State for the men's and Southwest Texas College for the women's.
And the organization named some rookies to watch, Trace Scarlarve for the men and Addison Wright for the women, both claiming AQHA Horse of the Year honors with Hello Lashes and Ya Right, respectively.
Beyond the buckles, CNFR champions often ride on to shape the future of collegiate rodeo programs, brand ambassador roles, livestock industries, and the broader Western communities.
Savannah, that looks like it's a wrap on this week's headlines. I think everyone should be on the lookout for next week's episode.
And in the meantime, I encourage everyone to check out Magnetic Ag's newsletter and social media for more cutting-edge ag headlines.
Hungry for more?
Subscribe to our twice-weekly newsletter for more industry news right in your inbox.
Or follow along on socials at magnetic.ag for more trends and headlines.
Thanks for listening to Magnetic Ag Ears Edition.